This is Goals with Soul, the podcast for visionary coaches and entrepreneurs, building your business with inspired action. In alignment with your mission and authentic message, so you can create impact for your soul clients and feel lit up every day. I'm your host, Jo Ingram, married mum of 3 daughters from London and a former ad agency director turned business coach and strategist. In Goals with Soul, we blend revenue generation with energetics, marketing strategies with pranic healing, and ambitious business goals with our soul's desires. If you're looking to build your business with less efforting and more ease, this is the podcast for you. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the very special 200th episode of Goals with Soul. I'm your host, Joanna Ingram, and I couldn't be more excited because 200 episodes is something that I couldn't have even imagined being a reality when I started Goals with Soul, I think at the back end of 2020. And back then I was just starting my business and thought, yeah, podcast, that seems like a good idea. I'll just, make a start and see where it goes. And interestingly, at the time, I was doing all the things. I was launching programs and membership. I was all over every social media, in every network. And of course, I had to launch a podcast. The interesting thing is that the one thing that has really weathered the last 4 years in a completely consistent and aligned way has been Goals with Soul. I've changed my programs, I've changed my message, I've changed my business model. But Goals with Soul has continued in its essence. It's continued sharing episodes, and it has continued to grow audiences across those 4 years in a way I could never have anticipated. Right now, at the time of recording this, Goals with Soul is at the top 2% of all podcasts worldwide. I think at one point we got up to top 1.5%. It kind of fluctuates. And whilst vanity metrics are never the thing that we should be focusing on first and foremost, it blows my mind that the episodes that I'm sharing continue to grow in popularity and is reaching the audiences who need to hear what it is we have to share. And over the last 4 years, we've had some phenomenal guests. We've had Caitlin Batcher, Susie Ashworth, Lisa Johnson, Gemma Went, some industry leaders who've shared right here on this podcast their incredible insights. And I know I've received feedback about some of the pearls of wisdom they've dropped and how that's changed the course of people's businesses and indeed people's lives. And that's why I feel honoured and humbled that I get to also share in these solo episodes things that have come through for me on my own spiritual journey, and things too that I can share as a messaging specialist and business strategist that is helping people, perhaps just like you, who are building heart-centered businesses and are creating that ripple of change in the world by building aligned businesses and getting out there and helping people that really need to transform in all kinds of ways. And so I want to thank you, whether you've been listening since day one or just found Goals with Soul last week. Some of the feedback that I've had over the months and years has been absolutely incredible. I hear that people are listening in on the school run or in the bath with a glass of wine or walking the dog in their welly boots. And I've had comments and messages, especially when I record my episodes, when I'm walking around the forest. I know that when I take my walks and my portal opens and these ideas just stream through, I've been immediately getting out my mobile phone, going off to the voice note app and just literally allowing that stream of consciousness to come through. And I think that when I first started my podcast, I really had to overcome a lot about messy action and this idea that it all has to be absolutely perfect and otherwise I couldn't do it. I mean, the years in corporate, and of course I spent 20 plus years working for media and advertising agencies at a director level, and I had internalized that if it's not perfect, you just can't put it out in the world. And of course, when you run your own business, this just isn't a reality, because if you're going to operate that way, it's going to take you a hell of a long time to get anything out in the world. And indeed, it's not necessary. I was taught very early on by a business mentor that getting a kind of C grade on the work that you do and the marketing you do is absolutely fine. It took me a while to get that, but Goals with Soul has always been my training ground. And I think that's where the power in this podcast has come. Certainly for me, and clearly for you, the listener too. Because as I was walking around the woods, of course, there's the crunch of ground under my feet. There's the sound of birdsong. And at first I was looking for ways of using my audio devices. How can I tune this out when I edit? But actually people reaching out saying, I love to hear the birds singing in the background. And it's awesome that we're coming along with you on this walk as you're sharing. And I had to take a really humble lesson there, because not only was it easier for me, but it was an even better listening experience for people that were tuning into Goals with Soul, which says a lot about my audience, you, the listener, which is we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for people we really resonate with. And we're looking for reality. And when we find it, it really feels like home. And as I reflect now in the 200th episode for Goals with Soul, what's brought me to this point, I realise that it's a combination of inspiration and consistency. One without the other would never have created what Goals with Soul is. And we now have over 30,000 downloads. That means 30,000 times someone has pressed the button on their favourite podcast app and have tuned into Goals with Soul. And that's really something to celebrate. And actually the element of consistency, of keeping going, has been something that's been on my mind for quite some time, particularly now I'm coming back after the summer and we're getting into this kind of autumn rhythm, that back to school feeling. And I've been looking at so many elements of my life, from my business to my health to my spirituality, and been thinking really hard about what consistency looks like. And I want to share something that happened a couple of weeks ago that will help explain why my mind has been going in this direction. Because I was having a terrible day. It was a Saturday a couple of weeks ago. I was in a bad mood because the summer holidays were over and I'd allowed the momentum of that bad mood to settle in. I had an argument with my husband. My teenage girls were cross with me and I just had enough. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go off to the mall and I'm going to buy myself a coffee and I'm going to pootle around the shops and just try and cheer myself up. So off I went. And whilst I was at the mall, first to say I bought a really cute pair of jeans, which really did start to cheer me up. I'm not someone that generally goes to the shops to solve my problems, but it felt good. I was starting to shift my mood when the alarm went off. And I was in a shop at the time and it said, please evacuate the area, please leave. So I did what I'm supposed to do. I'm your archetypal good girl after all. And I left the shop and I started to head towards the exit. But as I did, I noticed that the shops that I was now passing were still open, still doing business. So I popped in and I bought some harissa and then I headed for the exit. And as I came out of the mall, I realised that there were hundreds of people gathering outside the mall. And I looked up and the whole side of the mall was on fire. There was black smoke just billowing out. There were loads of fire engines arriving, people taking photos, social media going on. It was clearly a big event. And as I looked up at this smoke that was just increasing, the fire brigade clearly weren't getting a handle on it. I was like, uh-oh, this is the car park up in flames, and the car park where I parked my car. I checked with security who said, yeah, that's the car park. I was like, oh no, I'm clearly not going to be getting my car back today. Obviously, the whole mall's been evacuated. The fire is still out of control. There is no point in me waiting around. So I headed off home. And as I passed a policeman, I sort of asked him, what do I do about my car? And he's like, where's your car parked? Which level? I'm on P2. He says, that's exactly where the fire is. And as he's saying this, you can hear cars exploding, like boom, boom. It's like really dull thud as the engines are going up. And I was just like, oh, this is awful. So I went home with tail between my legs, feeling worse than I did when I left. And I allowed that bad mood to really take hold. And I got more and more frustrated about my car. I got really anxious and worried. I got into more altercations with my husband. And it just carried on. I started DMing the mall on social media. It was a Westfield mall and their communication was appalling, but that's another story. Just really trying to solve this problem. However, the whole weekend passed without any news about my car, except to learn that, yes, the car was parked in the area that the fire had been out of control. And there was obviously a chance that my car may not be okay. But it got to the Monday morning and me and my hubby decided we'll just drive down there in my mother's car and go and see the fate of our car, because we couldn't wait any longer to hear from Westfield, and we still didn't know. So we went down there, and there was a lady sitting behind the information desk, and we gave her our registration, our license plates, and she looked on the list, and it ran 4 pages long, and we weren't on the list. Turns out this was a good thing. This was the list of doom, the people whose cars were behind the cordon or indeed incinerated. So that meant that we could collect our car, and we did. We literally picked up our car and drove it home. And it allowed me time to reflect at the amount of time I had wasted in this bad mood, in this fog of anticipating the worst. I was already catastrophizing about how difficult it might be dealing with the insurers, how I might get a temporary car so I could do the school run. And I had allowed such momentum over this bad mood over those few days. And it reminded me that there were certain practices in my spiritual life that I had allowed myself to get out of the habit of. Now, perhaps you're thinking, oh, that's ringing a bell. Yeah, I used to journal, I used to meditate, I used to take nature walks, whatever it was. And there were things that I used to do religiously, although that kind of sounds like the wrong word, right? It should be spiritually, that had given so much to me when it came to my nervous system, to generally feeling so great in my life. And of course, that haloed into my relationships, my business. And I think I'd reached a point of complacency. I don't know if this resonates to you, but you do things for a long period of time and you feel generally pretty good. And you think that this is your normal. And you forget that it's the practices that are allowing you to stay at this, high state from an Abraham Hicks perspective, higher up on the emotional guidance scale. And then, for me, having had, 2 or 3 weeks holiday over the summer, I went away with the kids and my family for, 2.5 weeks. I went away with my mum for a week. Blissful summer. But I allowed myself to get out of the rhythm. And I'm going to tell you a secret. I kind of stopped doing this stuff for quite a long while before that too, right? Let's be human about this. I had assumed that I can feel higher up the emotional guidance scale without the practices. And then, of course, over a period of time, it was proven that that wasn't the case. And this whole car fire episode really highlighted that. Whilst it was a super inconvenience, it was actually a gift, because it reminded me that I have to actively take care of my moods, actively take care of my state. And it has reminded me the importance of consistency in my spiritual practice, bringing back the non-negotiables. It is not negotiable anymore that I do my morning meditation, that I have my swim or my woodland walk, that I set myself up well for the day, because that is the most important thing, the best gift I can give myself, rather than jump onto my computer or rush off and do some laundry or rush off and do 20 million other things that I have on my to-do list. None of those things will set me up for the day. And all of those things will get done more easily and indeed faster if I commit to my morning practices with consistency. And that's led me to reflect, both from a spiritual perspective, but also from a perspective of my business, the importance of 2 key things: decision and discipline. Inspired by my 200th episode on Goals with Soul and the consistency and discipline that's taken place to get this podcast to this place, reflecting on the insights that the car fire episode has brought to me, and realizing that in order to achieve anything, whether that's just a happier feeling or indeed a thriving, sustainable business, it's about making a decision and then underpinning that with discipline. I'm anchoring back into these 2 values, not from a place of hustle, but from a place of honoring what it is I really want to create in the world. It's this idea of devotion to what really matters to you, choosing to commit to the things that elevate your mood, elevate your energy and your alignment, and really bring into reality those things that you desire most. And when we aren't choosing those things, just seeing how they impact us, whatever it is that you might be finding more challenging at the moment, whether that's driving revenue for your business or simply feeling more energized as you work with your clients, or even just going through the day with your family, making that decision That decision to get back to morning meditation, or that decision to do 3 things that move the needle for your business every morning before you do anything else, or that decision to go swimming or go for a run, or that decision to have something really nourishing for breakfast. Every decision is something that we have to consciously make, and then we have to follow through. And for me, moving into autumn, seeing the effects of what compromising on that discipline can look like, I'm feeling so darn excited about the decisions that I am now making and the discipline that I'm applying to so many areas of my life in the same way I have done to Goals with Soul over the years. Now, it's always with alignment, and I reflect that there have been times on Goals with Soul that I have had other areas of focus and I've taken breaks. This year, I think 6 months we were off air before we came back with season 8. And there have been other times over the last few years that Goals with Soul has taken a break. Not because it was planned, but because there were other things that took precedence and my energy just couldn't be divided. And I allowed myself with kindness to just let Goals with Soul rest until the energy resurfaced. And of course, I've came back each time with a new season, bringing incredible guests onto the show and sharing my journey as well as my professional insights in episodes that I really hope, if you are a business owner, have given you great value and allowed you to see things slightly differently. And so what's coming next? Well, please keep tuning in for the remaining episodes in season 8 and make sure that you have hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app so that when we launch season 9, you'll be the first to see as each new episode drops. But right now, I have been so inspired by the growth of Goals with Soul that I have felt called to launch my second podcast, The Soulful Catalyst. Now, this has come about because so many coaches, healers, lightworkers, practitioners have approached me and asked if they could be a guest on my show. And because Goals with Soul only goes out 4 times a month, 2 episodes are solos and 2 are interviews, there's not too many opportunities for me to say yes. In any given month, I can only share 2 interviews. So I wanted to create an opportunity for more incredibly talented folks to share their expertise and ultimately share what creates incredible transformation. Being a soulful catalyst means somebody that approaches their work with spirituality and creates incredible outcomes and results for their clients. And the Soulful Catalyst podcast is a place that highlights those experts. In each episode, I interview brilliant and soulful coaches, healers, and practitioners who are deeply skilled in helping their clients create true change. Whether that's somatics, energy work, trauma healing, mindset, business strategy, or any powerful modality, they've mastered how transformation really happens. And we're peeling back the surface. We're getting to the heart of what creates true impact, the gifts, the talents, those soul-powered methods that drive real client results. I really want to create a platform that's a space to celebrate the creative and often unspoken work that creates lasting transformation. So please go check out the Soulful Catalyst podcast. I'd love to hear what you think. And if you're a talented coach or healer and you'd like to share your story and expertise and be featured in an upcoming episode of the Soulful Catalyst podcast, I would love to hear from you. You can apply to be a guest by going to go.joannaingram.com/soulful catalyst, and I'll pop that in the show notes. And so it feels like a wonderful time to announce my second podcast, 200 episodes for Goals with Soul. I think 2 episodes right now on the Soulful Catalyst. And I feel so aligned at being able to bring these 2 platforms to life. I'm full of gratitude to you who's sharing this journey with me and allowing me to be truly authentic, very, very real in my episodes and share what it really looks like when you come from over-efforting and over-proving through a journey to allowing, to ease, and to undoing the efforting story that has been certainly in my past. And it's certainly not a straight line. And I love that I can come here, pick up my microphone and share where those curves and swerves happen and how we come back to ourselves each and every time. Because we're people who have a purpose, who have heart and soul. And for this reason, I have even a stronger and renewed commitment to bringing aligned voices and value through my podcast and through, of course, all of my work. So as I always share at the end of every episode, and my 200th is no different, a call to inspired action. And it couldn't be plainer today what that needs to be. It's about decision and it's about discipline. It's about that commitment to what it is you really want to be in life and taking those steps every single day in the smallest possible way that builds to create the reality that is uncompromisingly yours. Have an inspired action week. Take care. Bye now.